join us on Patreon, and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone. The Karankawa tribe, a name that once evoked the salty breezes of the Gulf Coast and the untamed spirit of Texas' early wilderness, now lingers as a faint whisper in the annals of American history. To say their story has been erased is to understate the layers of neglect and misrepresentation that have shrouded their legacy. The Karankawa were a people of resilience, adaptability, and profound connection to the natural world, yet their narrative has been distorted, their voices silenced, and their heritage almost obliterated by centuries of colonial ambition, conflict, and cultural annihilation. To uncover the history of the Karankawa is not just to look at the past. It is to wrestle with the implications of forgetting and to confront the uncomfortable truths of how societies choose to remember. The shores of the Gulf Coast where the Karankawa lived were not merely a backdrop to their lives, but an active participant in their culture. Stretching from what is now Galveston Bay to Corpus Christi, the lush coastal plains, interwoven with estuaries, bays, and barrier islands, shaped the Karankawa's way of life. These were not lands to be dominated, but realms to coexist with, a philosophy that defined the tribe's relationship with their environment. Their diets were as fluid as the tides, with fish, shellfish, and game forming the cornerstone of their sustenance. The sea and the land were both a pantry and a sanctuary, each requiring deep knowledge and respect to navigate. But who were the Karankawa? In the minds of those who sought to conquer their territory, they were often caricatured as savages, a term that has historically been weaponized against indigenous peoples. This misrepresentation obscured the complexity of their culture, which was rich with traditions, spiritual beliefs, and social organization. The Karankawa spoke a language distinct yet enigmatic, as much of it remains undeciphered today. Their lives were marked by rituals and customs that not only connected them to their ancestors, but also provided a framework for their community. Among these was the ceremonial use of smoke, which played a significant role in their spiritual practices, and the crafting of dugout canoes, which served as both practical tools and cultural symbols. The arrival of Europeans in the Americas marked the beginning of an inexorable decline for the Karankawa, as it did for many indigenous tribes. The Spanish explorers were among the first to encounter them, recording interactions that ranged from trade to conflict. In the 16th century, Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, a survivor of a shipwreck, found himself among the Karankawa and later wrote about his experiences. His accounts, though invaluable, must be read with caution, as they are filtered through the lens of a man grappling with his own survival and cultural biases. The Spanish were soon followed by French explorers, and then by Anglo-American settlers, each wave bringing new challenges to the Karankawa's existence. With these newcomers came diseases that ravaged indigenous populations, wars that decimated their numbers, and the insidious spread of colonial ideologies that sought to erase their identity. Yet the Karankawa resisted, fighting not just for their land but for their way of life. Their resistance was not merely physical but cultural, as they sought to preserve their traditions in the face of overwhelming odds. By the 19th century, the Karankawa faced relentless pressure from settlers who viewed them as obstacles to progress. The Texas Revolution, a watershed moment in the region's history, further marginalized indigenous groups. The Karankawa found themselves caught between competing forces, their survival increasingly precarious. Many were forced to retreat deeper into the wilderness, while others were assimilated into other tribes or settler communities. The final blow came in the mid-1800s when the tribe was declared extinct, a grim milestone that belied the survival of their descendants and the endurance of their cultural memory. Today, the erasure of the Karankawa is not merely a historical event but an ongoing process. Their story has been overshadowed by narratives that glorify conquest and settlement while ignoring the cost paid by those who were displaced. Archaeological evidence and oral histories offer glimpses into their lives, but much remains obscured. The challenge of reconstructing their history is compounded by the biases of historical records, which often portray them through the eyes of those who sought to destroy them. Yet, the story of the Karankawa is far from over. Descendants and advocates have begun to reclaim their heritage,
piecing together the fragments of a culture that refuses to be forgotten. This reclamation is not just about honoring the past, but about asserting the right to exist in the present and the future. It is a reminder that history is not static, but a living entity shaped by those who tell it and those who seek to understand it. The Karankawa's legacy is one of resilience and adaptation, qualities that resonate deeply in a world increasingly aware of the need to coexist with nature. Their history offers valuable lessons about the importance of balance and respect, not just for the environment, but for each other. It challenges us to question the narratives we inherit, and to seek out the voices that have been silenced. To tell the story of the Karankawa is to confront the fragility of memory and the power of reclamation. It is to acknowledge the darkness of erasure while celebrating the light of persistence. And above all, it is to affirm that no culture, no matter how marginalized, is ever truly lost as long as there are those who remember, those who seek, and those who refuse to let it fade.